Morning. Good morning. How are you? Can we please move forward so that we can have ample space at the back for those that are coming later?
We just have to play a safety thing when everyone is here.
All right, I'm coming.
Just when it's fine, just let me know.
I will let you know. Can we please get settled so that we can start? Can we please get settled, colleagues? Thank you. Good morning to all of you. You are requested at the end of the program to remain standing until our management leaves the hall. And then you are also reminded that staff and students should exit through the side doors. Before we start with the program, we are going to play a DVD to show you the safety tips should something happen in the hall. Not that we are anticipating anything. I thank you.
Welcome to the Vaal University. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vaal University of Technology. This safety message is brought to you by the VUT Occupational Health and Safety Department. Please take note of the following in case of an emergency. During an emergency, do not panic or rush. Just follow the instructions given by the Campus Protection Services Department. Kindly use the emergency exit doors provided in the venue, which is clearly marked above each door. Rows A to D will ascend the stage and exit through the doors backstage. Rows E to P will exit through the side doors closest to them. Rows Q to U will exit through the back doors through the foyer. Please assist children and persons with disability when evacuating the hall. Once outside, the Campus Protection Service Department will lead you to the nearest assembly points. Please note that smoking in the hall and foyer is prohibited and that clearly marked designated smoking areas are provided around the campus. Kindly adhere to all the safety signs inside and outside the hall. We trust that you will enjoy your visit at VUT, your world to a better future.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a very auspicious occasion. It's probably one of its kind within the history of higher education in this country, that a Vice-Chancellor delivers the kind of address that our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Gordon Zide, is going to address. My role as Program Director is very simple. It's really to welcome all of you and to welcome a few people by name because they are very important to this institution. They're part and parcel of the leadership, management, and governance of this institution. The first person I want to acknowledge is the Chancellor of the university, Mr. Mkwanazi. And Mrs. Mkwanazi, you are most welcome to the institution. Say we feel very privileged that you created time to be with us this morning and to be part and parcel of this very important occasion. I also want to welcome a very important person, Professor Gordon Zide, our Vice-Chancellor and Principal. You're most welcome to this occasion, sir. Thank you very much. But Professor Zide would not be what he is without the support that is given to him by Mrs. Zide. You are most welcome to the university, ma'am. Thank you very much. I also want to welcome the Deputy Chair of Council, Ms. Exner. You are most welcome, ma'am. Thank you very much for coming to be with us this morning. I also want to welcome a number of people that are here. I can see a few in front of me, members of council. You are most welcome this morning, ma'am and sir, you're most welcome. I also want to welcome Mr. Simon Mapala, who is representing the Mayor of Sedibeng. You are most welcome, sir, to this auspicious occasion. I would like to welcome the executive deans. I think they are all here in full force. I don't see one, but I think he's represented, Professor Durap, Professor Rihanna Vanderbank, Professor Raymond Mabuza, and I think Professor Molloy is probably still acting. She's not acting, you are here. That's very good. I don't see the Dean of Engineering. I hope the person acting is here. You are all most welcome. And I see a number of our executive directors and directors, and the campus principal is also here this morning. Our Executive Director, Corporate Affairs is here. Our Executive Director, IT is here. Our Executive Director, Center for Academic Development is here. Our Acting Director for the Library Services is here. You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to welcome all the members of staff that are here. I can see they are heads of departments, they are academics. You are all here in full force. You are most welcome. I don't see the president of the SRC, but I'm sure because he's very tall, so he probably is somewhere in between. I welcome the president of the SRC, Mr. Lemohang Medupe, and I don't see also the secretary general of the of the SRC, maybe because he's a very short guy, so that's why I can't see him. You're welcome, Elisha. But I also welcome all the members of the SRC that are here with us. I see my comrades in the labor union. I've seen quite a few. I can see two right in front of me. Colleagues, you're most welcome to be supporting this grand occasion, which shows that both labor and the management, we are one and the same in terms of pushing the agenda of the institution forward. So, labor, you are most welcome. Students, you are also most welcome to this occasion, and all our well-wishers are most welcome to this very special day of the Valley University of Technology. It will indeed go down in history as a memorable day. Chancellor, I give it to you.
Thank you, Professor Jibu. Representatives from the Department of Higher Education, Mr. Mapalala, from Sadibeng Municipality, Deputy Chairman of Council, Chairperson of Council, Ms. Yolanda Exner, and other members of Council, Professor Gordon Zide, the Vice-chancellor and Principal of this great university, yourself, Professor Jibo, Pastor Langa from Christ Gospel Family Church, the Senior Management Forum of the Valley University of Technology, academic and administrative heads and departments of the departments, the Student Representative Council members, members of the media if they are present, VUT staff and students, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, by virtue of powers vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby declare that this congregation of the Valley University of Technology is duly constituted for the proceeding of the inaugural State of the University Address. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to just add a couple of sentences, because this State of the University Address, inaugural to this university, is indeed a trail-blazing practice of the higher education community of this country. It is historic because, apart from that, it comes head on the heels of the BRICS summit that just took place in our country, where ministers of science, technology, and engineering of the BRICS countries signed a historic collaborating agreement, wide-ranging on science, engineering, and technology. I'm sure that this university, as always, will lead the pack in taking advantage of those agreements and fostering partnerships in all the spheres of science, engineering, and technology with the countries of BRICS that would have mutual benefits for their countries and ours, as well as these universities and ours, particularly taking advantage of the emphasis placed on the youth participation in science, engineering, and technology. With that, I would like to congratulate this university, Professor Zide, on the leadership, and look forward to hearing you this morning in your State of the University Address, Professor.
I would like to call upon Pastor Langa, who is a member of staff. He teaches in engineering, to make sure that we do this properly. And obviously we here because God put us on this earth. So can you, Pastor Langa, please ascend to the podium.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Professor Jimbo. I would like to use an aggregating term to say protocol observed for the purposes of time. I also would like to greet everybody in this house in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Well, today I will be brief. I want to start by asking a question. Where do you think inspiration to communicate comes from? If anybody is to communicate or breathe, where does it come from? Well, that is the subject of my talk this morning. I would like to turn to the book of Matthew in chapter 5. I'll read three verses, verse 35 to verse 38. The Bible tells us the following. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." The greatest form of communication is when you communicate God's word. Those that speak God's word are privileged because they are speaking a divine language. Well, God's intention really is that everybody should speak the word of God, because that form of communication is the most superior communication. Today, we are going to be experiencing a communication by the Vice-chancellor of the university, who has gotten inspiration from God to communicate with us this morning. I started by asking a question. Where do you think the inspiration to communicate comes from? Now, I have taken a scholarly definition of what communication means from one of the articles written by Professor Velanzas and Dr. Brony, who say the following. The term communication has been derived from the Latin communis. That means common. Thus, to communicate means to make common or to make known. It also means to share, and that includes verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and electronic means of human interaction. Scholars who study communication analyze the development of communication skills in humans and theorize about how communication can be made more effective. It is meaningful to exchange information between two or a group of people. Now, that's a scholarly definition of communication, which essentially means that communication is an exchange of information. That's one of the traits that our Vice-chancellor has, to communicate. And today we are seeing what I refer to as a first for the university. Now, if you look at this particular scripture I've just shared with you, you will see a couple of things which I will just present to you in bullets for you to take note. The first thing we see is this, that there was a moment in time when Jesus, now you can recognize or imagine Jesus as a leader. The Bible says he went through all the towns and villages. So there was no section of the community that Jesus didn't visit. He paid a visit to every village. He paid a visit to every town for himself. He did that himself as a leader. And the Bible says he was teaching. He would communicate certain information to the people, and he would proclaim the good news of the kingdom. In other words, he would tell them about what's coming for the people, because that's what the people wanted to hear. But the Bible also tells us that Jesus was healing every disease. So when Jesus was out and about doing the visits, he recognized that there were problems. And whenever he would encounter situations where there were problems, for example, sicknesses and diseases, Jesus took action. The Bible says Jesus, every time he saw a disease or a sickness, he solved it. He healed every disease and he healed every sickness. He didn't ask questions, why are you sick? But every time he saw there was a problem, he engaged in trying to solve the problem by bringing about healing. Now, the next verse says, he saw the crowds and he had compassion on them. Now, that's one of the traits of a good leader. The Bible says Jesus had compassion when he saw the people. He saw the needs of the people, and Jesus had compassion. So what moved Jesus was the compassion that he had for the people. Now, you can look at this as an inspiration. He had some form of inspiration. Something inspired Jesus to move and do certain things for the people. Now, you will recall that one of the scriptures tell us that Jesus comes from fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And he comes back and he is anointed. And he says, for the anointing is upon me. For the Spirit of the Lord has anointed me to preach the gospel of the kingdom, to bring the good news to the people, to set the captives free, to set those that are in bondage free, to bring deliverance to the people. Now, Jesus himself had an inspiration to do certain things in terms of providing leadership in the community in which he was. And this is why now we see that Jesus had this special trait. It is a trait of compassion. When he looked at the people, he was inspired to do something for the people. And one of the things that was very prevalent in Jesus' life was this trait of being able to communicate. Now, it says here that he saw the crowds, he had compassion because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Now, this is talking about the fact that Jesus recognized that there was a gap of leadership that needed to be filled. He says the people needed leadership to be led because their condition, their situation was prompting that something must be done in terms of filling that gap. And it says they were helpless, it says they were harassed, and I think in this community, the University, the VUT University of Technology, we would like to see a situation where everybody is happy and they're doing their job and so on and so on. But that will happen if there is some form of leadership. Now, the second last verse says, he said to his disciples, now he brought forward his team, and he said, I have noticed something. Now he was communicating something to them. He says, the harvest is plentiful, and I have noticed that the workers are few. So we need to make some adjustments. He says, the harvest, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And he says to them, the problem we have is that we need to make adjustment and develop people and do all the things that we need to do to make sure that we can move forward. And this is what he says now. He says, ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send workers into his field. So what he's saying is this, well, I almost want to stress this thing. If anybody doesn't believe that inspiration comes from God, then I think I have a lot of preaching to do. For any person to move, to breathe, to do anything, the breath that you have comes from the Lord. If you don't believe that, Solomon was the wisest man of his time. And the Bible says that there is one thing God said to him. He said, Solomon, I would like you to come and ask anything from me. And the man went on his knees. He was a strong man. He went on his knees and he said, Lord, I'm praying that you give me wisdom so that I'm able to lead these people. And the Lord gave him wisdom, plus he gave him wealth. David is one of them. Now, the point I'm making is this. Jesus says, ask for inspiration from the Lord, that the Lord would give you wisdom, give you the energy to inspire the people to move forward. And he says, and the Lord will send the workers into his harvest field. And I think that it's important to recognize that for those that are put in leadership, the people that they are leading, they are actually the Lord's harvest field. So the inspiration that comes from the Lord will make the people to move forward in the direction that the Lord is pleased with. So in conclusion, I want to say the following. Jesus had an inspiration to communicate a message to the people, like we will experience the same today with this state of this university address. And Jesus had a vision. He recognized that there is a lot of work to be done, and he made it known to the people that that is the case. And Jesus also had a strategy of how to move forward. And I believe that that would be the strategy of any leader. The strategy would be, before you even, apply your skills that you've learned at college or university or anything, you would have to begin by asking for inspiration from the Creator. And our Creator in this case is God. Amen? Ask for inspiration from the Lord of the harvest to send workers into his field. And when you've done that, you shall be like Solomon. Whatever you say will have power to move the organization forward. I want to say a small prayer before I close, if you don't mind. Let's close our eyes, bow our heads. Father, we thank you that this morning you have inspired our Vice-chancellor to speak words of wisdom. You have inspired him with your inspiration to communicate to us, to make known the condition and the state of this university. And we thank you, Lord, for the privilege to have a man such as him. Empower him with wisdom and understanding, so that when he speaks, those things that he speaks will come to pass. In Jesus' name.
us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptations, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory
Thank you very much. Can we give another round of applause to the choir? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Gordon Ndobrozi Zide, our Vice-Chancellor and Principal. Just a very brief sneak preview into who Professor Gordon Zide is. Professor Gordon Zide is a renowned academic and a social scientist who assumed his responsibilities as Vice-Chancellor and Principal of this august institution with effect from the 1st of May 2017. Professor Zide previously served as the VUT as Deputy Vice-Chancellor responsible for governance and organizational transformation. In 2015, he joined the University of South Africa, UNISA, as Registrar, a position he held just for more than a year. In 2015, he was at UNISA, but he could not stop the attraction to come back to the VUT. And lo and behold, he was considered for the position. To cement his academic journey, the University of South Africa, at which Professor Zide served as its registrar, appointed him as Professor Emeritus in the field and discipline of anthropology. This is a field in which Professor Zide is actually one of the academics nationally. Professor Zide matriculated at the Fremantle Boys High School in Lady Frere and thereon proceeded to the Fort Hare University, where he completed his BA and a BA Honours and a Master's degree of Arts in Anthropology. In 1999, the then University of Port Elizabeth conferred on him a PhD in Anthropology. Currently, Professor Zide is one of the few public anthropologists in South Africa, and I would dare say in the region. His senior management career kicked off when he became the first black registrar of the University of Fort Hare, and then became advisor to the Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. Given the breadth and depth of his higher education knowledge, Professor Zide has already made invaluable contributions to the Vaal University of Technology and to the higher education sector as a whole. Professor Zide is a member of many professional bodies, but above all, we can mention that he is an accredited coach and mentor of the South African Board of People Practice. In 2015, the Institute of People Management of South Africa awarded him the status of a fellow. Professor Zide was instrumental in the establishment of the Universities South Africa, a body of all the universities in this country, where he was one of the founding chairpersons. Professor Zide is a true scholar. He has written and published extensively. He is a person who is well sought after to speak to the higher education sector, to speak to society as a whole. They just came back from Rwanda, the city of Kigali, where he was a keynote speaker at a conference of youths in Africa, which was attended by more than 2,000 young people from across the continent, and was also graced by the presence of President Paul Kagame. Professor Zide is married to Normalizo, also a graduate of Fort Hare University, and they are blessed with 6 children. And listen to this, they are also blessed with 8 grandchildren. Professor Zide is a lay preacher of the Methodist Church of South Africa and serves the church in many capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man, this is the person, this is the individual, this is the academic, and this is the leader who is leading this institution. And I dare say, those of us who work with him, we feel very privileged that we work with such an individual who has got a passion, who has got a vision, who has got a dedication, he has got sincerity about what he does. He is committed to this institution, and as one of the people that works very, very closely with him, I can attest to the fact that His commitment is to this institution in its present form. His commitment is to this institution in its future state. His commitment is to the students of this institution. His commitment is to the workers and the academic staff of this institution. He lives and walks the talk of this institution. So with these few remarks, I invite Professor Gordon Zide to give his inaugural address to this institution. Professor Zide, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Program Director, Peter, my brother, my friends, and my colleague. I would, right at the outset, before I say all protocol observed, recognize the presence of my wife, who made it a point that I wear a suit that's black and which matches the Chancellor's suit as well. So, yeah, good choice. Yeah. Colleagues, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the representative of the Department of Education and Training present, as well as to Mr. Simon Mapala, the MMC for Corporate Services, the Citibank District, to the Deputy Chairperson of Council, Ms. Ulandi Exner, and to all members of Council here in present. Thank you very much for your continued support. I would like to extend a word of gratitude and indebtedness to Professor Peter Jimbo, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic and Research, as well as the Vice Principal. I want to pay homage to Dr. Dan Mukwena, the Registrar, as well as the Secretary of Council, the senior members of the Management Forum, members of the Executive Management Committee, members of Senate, academic and administrative heads of departments, executive deans of faculty, the Student Representative Council, the members of the media here in present, members of the organized labor, both Ntewu and Nehau, members of the convocation, members of the institutional forum, members of the VUT choir under the leadership of Mr. Vumile Nomanyama, and members of staff and students. When we talk about members of staff and students, we include everybody because we continue being students every day of our lives. In one meeting which was addressed by the erstwhile Minister of Education and Training in his new portfolio, after having expressed his gratitude to everybody present, we know that he's responsible now for roads, and he said, all potholes observed. And I'm not going to say all potholes observed. But let me start off, colleagues, by saying that this is a privilege for me to be standing in front of you today, and the Valley University of Technology is making history. When I explained to my colleagues in the USEF that we are going to have the State of the University address, and some colleagues said to me, Gordon, you're putting so much pressure on us because the expectation from the DHET will be that all universities will have to follow suit. But of course, I said I am fulfilling a commitment which I made when I was being interviewed for this position. I did then explained that we are going to have a State of the University address. Because I said if government can do it at a national level, provincial level, local level, why can't we do it? Because this institution is a public entity and we are equally answerable to taxpayers. So it is very important that we walk through what we are professing. Now let me begin. Charles Dickens opens his masterpiece book, A Tale of Two Cities, with a set of juxtaposed contradictions and conundrums, complexities and perplexities, as he poignantly opines, and I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was an epoch of belief, it was an epoch of incredulity. We had everything before us, and now we have nothing before us." I find these opening words of Charles Dickens very relevant to VUT at the present moment, as they conjure a state in which we find ourselves. As we all know, it was previously the best of times, as we had everything before us. And now it is the worst of times, as we have nothing before us. Indeed, an epoch of belief has gone right before us, and now we are left with an empty shell of what VUT was. And the current situation only confirms the epoch of incredulity. Who then can take us out of this quagmire? And who can find a solution to the conundrums and complexities we are faced with? Only you can make the difference, if and only if you heed my prophetic address. A State of the University address in a fast-changing environment like the Valley University of Technology is an opportunity of self-introspection, self-assessment, and self-critique with a view to presenting a case for self-discovery, self-awareness, and self-improvement. It will be a travesty of justice and a waste of time and resources if we set aside these few hours to listen to the first State of the University address and then only to continue business as usual. A State of the University address seeks to conscientize the members of the Valley University of Technology that from here onwards, things cannot and should not be the same, as if we continue doing things in the same old way post the State of the University address, then we would only demonstrate our resistance and unwillingness to change. What then is my message? I'm standing before you today neither as a prophet nor as a philosopher, but as an ordinary person who has been graced and given the opportunity to lead this institution with your support. With great ambivalence and a sense of contradiction, I am nonetheless happy to address you on the topic. The contradiction and tension between a successful university and the one facing extinction through self-inflicted pain and destruction. But at the same time, I am sad that I'm going to share with you many of the negatives and positive things about the university, and many of which you know and you would not wish to hear, and some of which you may not know and would therefore be keen to know. Or some would argue that some of these things ought to have been known. Now let me begin. The Valley University of Technology is supposed to be a crucible and a cradle of intellectual vibrancy and intellectual activity due to its historic political landscape. Many students in South Africa and beyond should be flooding our registrar with a barrage of applications for admission to a university which is within the driving distance of the famous apartheid 21 March 1960 Sharpeville shooting site, the 1985 Buipatong massacre site, the 1996 signing of the democratic constitution of the country in Vereeniging by the first president of the democratic South Africa, President Nelson Mandela. However, VUT is always considered to be a university of second choice because of our failure as staff and students to grab the opportunity on making use of our historical location. Instead, we tend to be obfuscated and preoccupied with things which do not add value to this institution. I will explain what I mean by this. I had hoped that the task teams which I had established to work on the extracurricular progressive programs such as Africanization and decoloniality, development studies, entrepreneurship and commercialization, introduction to constitutional law, African history, the land question, and politics would have by now have taken off the ground to grab the opportunity of using the political landscape of our geographical location as a springboard of promoting VUT as a truly African university and not as a university situated in Africa. Mr. Vice Principal, Professor Jimbo, our students are yearning for these extracurricular programs, and I therefore, through your kind office, plead that you make this dream come true. And this is the vision I have for this institution. Our students, upon completion of their studies, will walk tall in engaging with their counterparts from other sister institutions on an equal footing on the current and future political discourse of our country, and indeed of our African continent. We are an African university, and our epistemological content should be driven by African dreams, ethos, and values. I am sure this can be done, and it has to be done, and shall be done. Nobody then will dare challenge me when I say I am a servant leader. When I started on the 1st of May 2017, I explained then, and I want to repeat yet again, that this institution continues to be riddled with corruption, rumors, cabals, camps, slates, and divisions. Even now, those who are pursuing an agenda of destroying this institution for their own selfish, devious, and mischievous means are in our midst. And the corporate hyenas are at work. I have repeatedly called for unity, but lo and behold, my pleas are falling on deaf ears. The old adage, you can take a horse to the river, but you cannot force it to drink, seems to resonate with the one which says a tiger cannot change its spots. What these two proverbs suggest is that no matter how hard you may try to convince people to change their behaviors for the benefit of the institution, they just continue to do as they wish. This is sad, because when the arm of law catches up with them, they are going to be the ones who immediately will rise up and start accusing the disciplinary machinery of the university. But let me warn them again publicly that what they are doing in corners will be brought to light, no matter how long it might take. Whether people like it or people do not like it, we have a responsibility to this institution. And that responsibility is to root out evil and corruption. And that will happen whether we like it or not. This is a public institution. We owe this institution to the public. That I can assure you. And if it means that I will have to be forced to leave by the forces of darkness for taking this stand, so be it. I cannot allow my integrity and credibility to be destroyed by forces of darkness. I cannot. Now, let me put it bluntly. VUT cannot and shall not be used as a cash cow. There are people who see the Vaal University of Technology as a cash cow. They want to eat and eat and eat until there is nothing left to eat. If we love this institution, we must jointly work together in building this institution if we love it. But if we don't love it, we will continue pushing it to a precipice, to a sense of no return, and forgetting that there are those coming after us who would want to come to this university. But if we, as corporate hyenas, eat and eat and eat, nothing will be left of this university. There has been a lot that has been said about insourcing or outsourcing. Let me explain, and I think we are going to kill this thing once and for all. Insourcing. The university had expressed its commitment to this process, and it cannot renege on it. There is a task team working on insourcing. The task team only met once. Listen to this one. That task team met only once. I had taken the liberty of sharing with the erstwhile chairperson of the task team information about insourcing from UNISA, from the University of Free State, but lo and behold, that information was never shared with the members of the task team. Now, the message that is going in the corridors is that no, this Vice-chancellor is anti-insourcing. That is absolute nonsense, quite frankly. There is a commitment which was signed before my time. And when I came here, the meeting of the insourcing committee had never taken place. I have heard to reconvene the meeting of the task team. In the process, you said, let us appoint an interim chairperson. And that interim chairperson was elected in the person of Mr. George Mvalo, the Director of Social Justice and Transformation. And then what I said to the task team, please expedite this process, because we want to make sure that we reach a stage where we can say we are outsourcing, we are insourcing. I explained to the task team that at UNISA the process took about 10 months to conclude. But I'm not suggesting that at VUT we should take that long. But all I'm saying is that the commitment is there. And all what needs to happen now is to fast-track this process. But in fast-tracking the process, we have to respond to the following questions. What the financial position of the university is. Based on the above scenario, how many employees will be insourced? And then the date on which the insourcing will be implemented. And evidently, when the task team shall have concluded its business, it will have to prepare a submission to council. And council will have to take an informed decision. A council cannot take a decision based on this may be, this could be. Council needs tangible, palpable evidence. Further, I wish to emphasize the fact that we are going to run this institution professionally and progressively, and we shall do so without fear nor favor. We shall do so with gumption, determination, temerity, and vigor. I have been accused, now listen to this one. I have been accused of belonging to a clique or to some cabal or even having been captured. I publicly rebut and reject such allegations. If there are those who claim that I belong to their clique or that they have captured me, let them say so right now. You know, when you attend a wedding, when you attend a wedding, the minister will say, if there is a person or there are people who are against these getting married, they must stand up and say it now or forever keep quiet. Now, colleagues, I want to challenge anybody or those who say I am captured to stand up right now publicly and tell this congregation who captured me, where. Did I ever Let me proceed.
Let me just say Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, can we please respect the Vice-Chancellor? If you have got any issues that you want to take up with the VC, his office is open. So please sit down. Please sit down. Please, Mr. Kazadi, please sit down. Sit down. Sit down. No, sit down. Please respect the Vice-Chancellor. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down, Mr. Kazadi. Sit down. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. VC, you have the...
These words are intended to reinforce and claim that I am a servant leader. To those of you
Can you please sit down? Can you please sit down? Can you please sit down? If you don't sit down, then we have a problem. Can you please sit down? No, sit down, sit down, sit down. Sit down. Mr. Ngobeni, you have no issue. You go outside or you come to us later. No, I'm not talking to you. Go outside, go outside, go outside, man. We will talk to you later, not now. Respect the VC. Respect the VC. Why can't you just shut up? Sit down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you want to listen to the VC, you sit down. Thank you very much. If you want to listen to the VC, you sit down and you listen. If you don't want to listen, you quietly walk out. We'll respect you, please. If you don't want to listen to the VC, you quietly walk out of this room. That's what I'm saying. Please. My apologies, Chancellor. VC, you've got the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. When I assumed duty on the 1st of May 2017, I identified corruption as one of the most cancerous evils which is tearing this institution apart. I explained then that I was going to request counsel to grant me permission to commission a forensic investigation, which would help us deal with this toxic and cancerous evil. Council approved the request, and the forensic investigations and forensic investigators are hard at work as we speak, and their report will be made available to Council and not to the Vice-Chancellor. The CISO and Saluba Board auditors are our forensic investigators. To my greatest astonishment, there are people, unfortunately, who want to detract and derail this process. To deal with some of the glaring challenges, the following intervention measures have been put in place. One, we have requested for a forensic investigation, and we said everybody with whatever information he or she has must go to the forensic investigators. That is currently taking place. Two, we made a commitment to Council that we are going to review our strategy. So the strategy review process is on course, and the consultation process will unfold, and evidently, the process will lead to restructuring and re-engineering. The HR Committee of Council, at its meeting of the 8th of May, advised management to prioritize strategic positions and advertise them. Strategic positions which will not be affected by the strategy review, that is, form follows function. This is good news because it will stop VUT being perceived as the Hollywood of South Africa, where everybody is an actor. The services of an HR specialist were procured, and Dr. Gary Paul assisted us in the development and review of our HR policies. Again, this is a gap which was identified by Council and asked management to procure such services, and this we have done. The second point is that Mr. Raj Mudli is our Director Control Systems Management, even though he is also currently, because of the staff capacity, is taking charge of personnel security office. But I have requested him, to go back to his substantive position, because it is critical for us to have somebody who is looking at the control systems management. I further requested the CFO to set aside an amount of 1 million rands to recognize and reward service employees who excel in their work and performance. The CFO did this, and now I am awaiting the guidelines and criteria to be used in achieving this dream. HR, under the leadership of Professor Khatebe, will be developing guidelines to help us reward and recognize those service workers who do exceptionally well. As you would know, a date was set up for management to roll up its sleeves and embark on a campus-wide cleanup campaign. And Ms. Ikidi Mukozi, the Director of Marketing and Public Relations, suggested that we do this on the Mandela Day, the 67 minutes. You all participated, and this was done, and it is a campaign which we shall have to do annually. We were quite impressed last week when we were in Rwanda. The town is so clean in Rwanda. And we were told that twice a month, business close up, and Paul Kagame says to the people of Rwanda, you go and clean up the streets. Now, if you are caught throwing something in the street, the police arrest you, and you have to pay a fine of 25,000 Rwandan francs to be released. So they are really taking proud of their city. Can't we do the same as the Vaal University of Technology? Champion a student debt. When I made a call to the wider South African citizenship, as per the Sowetan of 8 February, to help sponsor struggling and deserving students, Corporate Affairs came up with the idea of Champion a Student. It is working, and I want to plead to those who can help us in sponsoring needy students to join this campaign. Linked to the above, Professor Hadebe will explain that we managed to appoint a director of resource mobilization and fundraising, even though we are now in the process of engaging about whether she's going to accept it or not. But we have made progress. We're waiting for Dr. Ramdani to assume duty once she explains that she's happy. On the 3rd of March, we visited the Sobukwe Foundation in Grafrenet, and part of the visit was to embrace nationalism and Pan-Africanism in particular. And the idea is to stretch our wings to Africa. And further down the line, we are going to recognize Mama Veronica Sobukwe and to forge links with the Sobukwe Foundation, because it is important for us as an African university to have our wings stretching across Africa. Performance management will be introduced across the university, and this will start at the top. The Vice-chancellor's performance contract has been drafted, and it will be shared with the HR Committee of Council. And once the HR Committee of Council shall have satisfied itself with the contents thereof, this will be presented to Council so that Council equally has a sense of what is expected of the Vice-chancellor. And once the Council shall have approved, the PMS will be cascaded further down, and there will be no holy cows. As I said, everybody will have to be performance managed. Colleagues, the downside of it is this one. The student debt is spiraling, and this is a situation which cannot be allowed to continue without enforcing the student debt reduction strategy as approved by Council. If we fail to enforce and implement the same, then it would mean that we are the enemies of this university. We cannot preside over a leaking Titanic. The stakes are very high, and I have consistently asked the Chief Financial Officer to present the following: the financial analysis, financial projections, and whether or not we are in the red or in the black. The PwC colleagues shared with us that this university is regrettably not doing well financially speaking. And we can only deal with this financial morass if we work together as a team. You know, sometimes there are people who think that every solution must come from the Vice-chancellor. I wish I had those powers. Then I would know exactly what to do. But unfortunately, it can't be. We have to work as a team. The procurement processes. Our procurement processes leave much to be desired. And you listen to these examples, colleagues. Instead of going for the cheaper option for the university, they go for the most expensive ones. They are not saving money for the university. Listen to the following examples. A generator, which ordinarily cost between 300,000 and 400,000, was bought for a price of over $1 million, scoring over 600,000. Something is not right. A camera costing 12,000 was purchased for 90,000. Same camera and same brand. Something is not right. For the corporate affairs department to buy a space in the media for about 35,000. If we go through our procurement processes for Mail and Guardian, the same space would be bought for 90,000. Something is not right. A packet of green tea, if you buy it from Discam, is about 12,000 rands. Oh, sorry, it's about 12 rands. I'm sorry. A packet of green tea, if you buy it from Discam, is about 12 rands. But if the same packet of green tea, you buy it through procurement, you pay 20 rands. Something is not right. And so when I say that there are people who are seeing this university as a cash cow, we have the facts here. Something is not right. And evidently, there are those who will stop at nothing but to pull down this institution. Colleagues, this is a public institution. It is not somebody's private farm. The future of this university is in our hands. But if we allow the future of this university to be destroyed, then the topic of this State of the University address is spot on. When I talk about the contradiction and the tension between a successful university and the one that is facing extinction through self-inflicted pain and destruction. The 300 beds in Sebokeng, this res has been standing vacant for some time now. And whilst I am privy to some of the municipal logistical challenges, the people who are not members of the EMC will be asking a number of questions as to what is happening. Fortunately, this morning, we had a meeting, and Prof. Swanepoel and Raj are working together with their team. They will be engaging with the Mfuleni local municipality so that water is connected, because we cannot have a facility that is standing vacant for some time. Colleagues, there is a poor management of inventory and assets. This is a very serious threat to the sustainability of the institution. Assets are moved from one office to the other, and there are no demonstrable control measures in place. We cannot continue in this manner. There are assets in our records which are obsolete but are not recorded. And so what then this means is that our assets are inflated when in fact they should not. And the university printing paper is allegedly finding its way through the gates of VUT. And there are people whose businesses are flourishing outside using VUT equipment. You know, colleagues, I'm saying these things publicly and openly, saying if we love this institution, we cannot allow these things to happen. Because if we're robbing this institution, then it means that we're robbing our own salaries. It is not right. Let me touch briefly on the Maduna strike. As you would know, the university was forced to close down prematurely for the Easter weekend, for the Easter holidays, due to the unexpected Maduna security strike. The university had to make interim security arrangements. Such arrangements continue to receive management attention. It is, however, said that the management of Maduna seems to be targeting certain individuals. We do have a Piri right now as an interim security company. We are in the process of revisiting. Hence, I explained that we cannot renege on insourcing. But evidently, when we talk insourcing, we'll have to look at the bigger picture of how we're going to engage on insourcing. But I must honestly also extend our profound gratitude to the South African Police Services for having worked with us entirely and tirelessly. So, were it not for the SAPS, we would not have been able to control the Maduna strike. The fourth point I want to talk about is security at the residences. We cannot turn a blind eye to the following acts of anti-Africanism. There are large German cars driven in and out of the residences in full view of the guards. Now, when we talk about German cars, we talk about the big Mercedes-Benz. They are driven in and out, and somehow they find their way, or the drivers find their way through to the rooms of our female students. It is sad. It is sad. And I'm saying this with a heavy heart. We're told that some of the older men wake up in the rooms of the female students and go to the bathrooms with their towels around their, and when they cough, you can actually detect from the coughing that it is not a 21-year-old. Colleagues, we can laugh at it, but this is something that I'm saying as a parent. Forget now as Vice-chancellor, no, but as a parent, it cannot be allowed to happen. When they cough, it's like, some female students allegedly lead these occupants into their rooms in full view of the guards because there is a relationship. But that's something that we're going to deal with the security guards. Some male students and female students allegedly want to sleep together as husband and wife. It is not right. Because once you start practicing that now, there is no fun further down the line. Because when you are of a particular age, you're looking forward to getting married so that you can lead the life of husband and wife. But you can't practice it now. It is not right. But the irony of it, colleagues, is that it is only black students who want to do these things. You go to the Stellenbosches of this world, you go to the VUTs, white students still observe these cultural values. But why don't we be proud of who we are as African people? We are doing things which in our own homes are not doing. But at university, we're doing those things. It cannot be right. Our residences are known as the homes of the drug dealers. We'll have to do something about that. Rape cases are on the rise. Prostitution allegedly taking place at our residences. Stabbings and killings are taking place at our residences. The Lapa is being used as a shebeen and no longer as a decent place of entertainment, or as they call it, edutainment. My soul is troubled. Now, therefore, such acts of criminality cannot and will not be allowed to go on unchallenged. Abnormal behavior will demand abnormal intervention. We cannot always be on the receiving end of a blame game. I have given an instruction to the following portfolios to take immediate action. 1, protection services to enforce the rule of law as far as security guards are concerned, particularly at the residences. 2, as we continue engaging with organized labor, we are committed as management to the insourcing of security, but the process cannot happen overnight, as we need to consider its pros and cons. I've already spoken about that. The residences to put in place a structure which will take into account the safety of the students, because we cannot dawdle on this one. We informed the DHET about a few years ago of the plans we are putting in place to secure the residences. So the Department of Projects and Services, as we speak, is currently working on fencing off of the female residences so that no uninvited guest could find his or her way into the female rooms. And then, of course, having that deep cough. The refurbishment and the renovation of residences, as we speak, is taking place. And it is something, colleagues, which pains my heart, because what is taking place right now ought to have happened some couple of years ago. But as we speak, you can take a tour to the residences. You will see what is happening. What pained my heart, colleagues, and I said this to the president of the SRC, when one building was declared not habitable, Kayaletu, I said, but how can that be possible? Because if you go to much older universities, the structures which were there in 1916, for instance, I can quote my own alma mater. This university was founded in 1966. But Yanni Morotolo and his team, as we speak, I think the work is about 60-70% complete of the very building that was said it's not habitable. Because you see, what was happening is that we close these residences, then we go to town and take money from the university and pay service providers, which money is supposed to be circulating within the university. It is just not right. But I'm happy that at least something is taking place. Let me jump a few ones here. Let me say, we must be very careful of not playing into the hands of those who want to divide this institution. we cannot play into the hands of divide and rule or divide the divided. It is not right. Let me briefly talk to you about anti-whiteism. It pained my heart when I learned that the Vice-chancellor was being accused of being anti-white. Those of you who care to know about my own history, biological history that is, will know that in my blood runs the blood of white people. And therefore I cannot be anti-white. If I am anti-white, it means I am anti-myself. As you know, I issued a memo to all staff and students and said that there is no such thing. I don't see people in terms of the pigmentation of their skin color. I see people in terms of who they are and the contribution that they can make to this institution. And having said that, you know, to be pro-black does not necessarily mean that one is anti-white. And so, colleagues, let us move away from racism, ethnicism, and tribalism. It is not right. You know, South Africa is like a zebra. If you are a white person and you don't like the black spots of a zebra, and you say, let me aim for the black spot so that I can remove it, and you shoot at it, you kill the animal. You're not only aiming at the black spot, you will kill the animal. Likewise, as a black person, if you say, I don't want that white, let me remove that, you kill the animal. This is what a rainbow nation is all about. Colleagues, gone are the days of looking at one another in terms of color. This institution is more important than any one of us. Let us embrace one another as one. You know, I always crack a joke with Rihanna. I always say to her, and she says that to me as well, she's my sister from another mother. And she says, you are my brother from another mother, which is cool. Colleagues, you know, having been to Rwanda again, what an experience it was. There are 3 tribes there, the Hutus, the Tutsis, and the Batwas. But what Paul Kagame did, him being a Tutsi, was just a wonderful experience, bringing together the 2 warring parties, the Tutsi and the, what is this other one, Lemu? Yes, but the Tutsi and the Hutus. Why can't we do the same at this university? Not to mention the country. And we embrace and extend a hand of friendship to one another. Colleagues, violence against women and children. South Africa is a sick society. Every day we read about violence against women and children, and this is totally unacceptable. There are a number of true stories of violence against women and sexual abuse. And these are not only unethical and immoral acts, but are symptoms of a sick society. When such things happen, please report them immediately so that they can be dealt with without any procrastination. We cannot, if we claim that we are a responsible nation, act negatively against women, against children, may I even say against men. It is not right. Foreign nationals, Again, you may recall that there were rumors which did the rounds alleging that foreign nationals are not welcomed at this university. I rebutted the allegations by assuring our brothers and sisters that there was no semblance of truth in such allegations, as we are part of the SADC protocol. If foreign nationals are in the country legally, then there is no need or reason for them to be concerned. With this State of the University address, I again want to appeal for unity and togetherness, and to stop uttering statements which could cause harm to the image and reputation of this institution. The white paper on post-school education, this I am asking the registrar and the vice principal to listen carefully to. Where is VUT in the bigger scheme of things? The publication of the white paper on post-school education has become quite topical in the higher education landscape. And this piece of legislation has generated robust discussion and engagement, and particularly about the minister's aspiration on program articulation and collaboration between universities and TVET colleges, especially UOTs. We have the Citibank TVET College about 10 kilometers away from here, and we also have Sasol TVET College about 15 kilometers away from here. And the questions are, what impact does VUT have on these colleges? Do we have any collaboration with these colleges? From an academic point of view, we shall be ignoring these questions only at our own peril. In this regard, I am asking both the registrar, Dr. Dan Mukwena, and the DVC Academic and Research, Professor Peter Jimbo, to explore the possibility of collaborating with the Citibank TVET College and the Sasol Bank TVET College for purposes of program articulation and accreditation. Should this arrangement fit our purpose, this can be the basis upon which we can make a contribution to the realization of the intention and the prescripts of the white paper on post-school. I will be expecting a preliminary report from these two colleagues within the next 2 weeks. Dan and Peter, please do mark my request. Living in times between times. We're living in times between times, and thus the future of this university can only be determined by our own actions. If we want it to be the best university of technology, so it shall be. But if we want it to go under, again, it shall go under. But what I want to emphasize, colleagues, is that after this State of the University address, we are going to have an institutional public engagement summit, drawing from the themes which shall have been articulated here. From the institutional public engagement summit, we would have collectively to address all of these issues which I have put before you. The higher education landscape is fast changing, just like any other socio-pedagogical landscape, and will therefore need men and women of caliber to move with times between times. You know that I had earlier on indicated that the following would need attention: community engagement, internationalization, teaching and learning, research development, commercialization, etc., etc. I want us to be there, just to borrow from President Ramaphosa. I want us to be there when people turn it around for the betterment of the Vaal University of Technology. And in this regard, I want to say, with the late Brahu Masekela, the alumnus of this university, was quoted by the state president, "Tumamina, send me." The Tumamina campaign. The Tumamina campaign is a call for service delivery, as it is a call for humbling oneself to the larger cause of service to humanity, thereby saying, I am your servant, use me whilst I am still with you. Heed my call. The servant leadership. As a servant leader, one has the right to cherish things that he is passionate about. And why do I say so? I'm saying these things not as a moralist or even as an ethicist, but I'm saying these things as a servant leader whose philosophical approach to life is deeply rooted in the service of humanity and Africanism. And no one can therefore challenge me when I say I am a servant leader. What is a servant leader? A servant leader is the one who carries the weight of an institution. A servant leader is the one who accepts and withstands a barrage of insults and attacks. A servant leader is the one who has the capacity to listen. A servant leader is the one who remains focused no matter what the political challenges of derailment are. A servant leader looks beyond desperation and exasperation, but welcomes exhilaration and inspiration. How do I know? How do I know? I know because I have been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land, so Martin Luther King Jr. says. I may not get there with you, but you, the people of this university, will get to the promised land with or without me. I know, because just like many of you know, but I have decided to turn a blind eye, that this university, if something is not done drastically, will go under. And I know that if we fail to work together, this university will be put under administration. I know because this institution is bleeding and we seem to be oblivious to the fact that everybody wants to eat and eat until there is nothing to eat. We have indeed begun our descent. I know because the FinCom has asked the finance portfolio to develop a turnaround financial strategy for VUT. And once that is completed, done and dusted, and approved by Council, we shall have to embrace it and live by it if we want to see some form of financial stability and sustainability. If not, then the statement by Susan Marais, corporate hyenas at work, will only be a living testimony of where we are. I'm just about to finish. University Choir to record and produce its first CD. Is the choir still here?
Yes,
Yes. Colleagues, on a number of occasions, and even during our graduation ceremonies, I did advise that our university choir will be recording its first CD, and all that is due to the generous assistance of Mr. Monwabi Sinkula, whom I approached and said, is there anything that you can help us with this choir? As we speak, colleagues, they are now, if not almost, Vumile, can you come here quickly?
He's gone out.
Yeah, he's gone out. They are currently recording about a month ago, they had already recorded 6 songs. Monabisi wants them to record 15, and I don't know how many they, yeah, here he comes. Come, just tell the congregation how many songs we have recorded now. The last time I checked, it was 6. You just tell us how far.
We are sitting on 12 songs that we have recorded so far.
Thank you very much. On 12, and they are short of 3 now to make 15. This is a milestone for this institution. The proceeds of the CD will go as follows. To assist the current members of the VUT choir towards their financial needs to be determined by an independent special committee which will ensure fairness in the disbursement of the funds. At the discretion of that committee, to help and assist any other needy student and deserving student, but also to profile and market this institution. And finally, to encourage and motivate other students to join the choir, not for financial purposes, but for the voices which the Lord has given them. So this is the choir. It will definitely get there. And this is one of those initiatives which I have taken. The choir came to my office, and they touched my heart when they sang. Strategy review. We are in the process of a strategy review, and to this end, the university community will be brought on board for purposes of buy-in. The EMC had a breakaway session, and where we deliberated at length on the strategy review. And so we are going to bring everybody on board. Colleagues, let me cite this example about the financial sustainability of this institution. There was a University X, which is probably known to some of you. That's why I'm referring to it as University X. So much pressure was put on the university management by organized labor and students. When I say organized labor, please, Nehau and Ndeu should not look at me, but I'm just trying to explain. More and more salary increases went beyond the salary bill threshold of 65%. And of course, no fees for tuition and residences were paid. And finally, this university was not able to pay salaries. Now the university had to explore other possibilities. And what they did, they took the money from NSFAS, paid salaries. That was because it could not sustain. And when that was done, because NSFAS said, no, this is improper, it's irregular. They said, well, let us go to the pension fund of the university to pay salaries. As we speak, that university is in serious trouble. And all I'm saying, colleagues, is that we have some difficult days ahead. But my approach to life is always informed by the late King Sobhuza II, would always say, "Akusiko kwami kwebantu." It is not about me, it is about the people. That is really the message that I want to convey. Because we are faced with some difficult days ahead. Colleagues, let me briefly touch on the recent suspensions. And I'm not going to talk about the merits and the demerits. All I'm going to talk to you about the suspensions is that please, let us not jump into conclusions about these suspensions and be judgmental about them. Any employer, in terms of the LRA of 1995 as amended, has a right to put an employee on precautionary suspension if there is reason to believe that his or her presence on campus will interfere with investigation. And also, an employee has a right to defend himself or herself. It follows, therefore, that an employee is deemed innocent until proven guilty. Under these circumstances, let us not speculate about the colleagues who have been put on suspension. They have a right to go to CCMA and or any instrument of justice to challenge the legality of their suspension and their hearings. And so, colleagues, let us be mindful of the fact that when colleagues have been put on suspension, they have not been dismissed from the university. There is a due process that needs to be followed. And let us not be judgmental, because right now, and we don't want to respond to gossip and rumors, there are people who are already jumping, so-and-so, this and this and this. It is not right. Let us allow this process to unfold, and that's it. Colleagues, let me also touch on this one, because I don't think that it will be allowed if I don't touch on it. When I say no one is above the law, a grievance has been laid against the Vice-chancellor and the legal advisor. For your own information, there is a grievance laid by a colleague against the Vice-chancellor and the legal advisor. The matter has been escalated to the chairperson of council for hearing, because I cannot stand and be judged on a matter that has been, it's about me. I do not want to divulge more, but I simply want to share this with you for purposes of transparency about what is going, for purposes of transparency, and indeed about what is going on within this university. But as I have said also, in terms of our own grievance hearing, I have a right to protect myself, and so does the legal advisor. And the individual concerned will not be victimized if he or she has got evidence of the things that he's talking about. The strategic themes, which are pillars and drivers of an envisioned VUT. When we held our first strategic breakaway session as the SMF in Paris in August 2017, we collectively identified the following themes, and we agreed that the colleagues will lead these. The academic project is led by Professor Jimbo. Governance and leadership is led by the registrar. Financial sustainability and viability by the Chief Financial Officer. Technology transfer and innovation by Dr. Joe Mulete. Human capital management by Professor Patrick Hadebe. These themes will resonate with the strategic thrust of the strategy review. So, it is important that the champions of the following initiatives will have to provide written reports to my office within the next 2 weeks from the date of this State of the University address. Africanization and decoloniality, they know who they are. And I don't think that they want me to remind them in this hall. Development studies, entrepreneurship and commercialization, the Center for Human Rights, introduction to constitutional law, African cultural village, the land issue, etc., etc. We also need to honor our stalwarts, both those who have done well politically, as well as those who have done well in leading change in a broader spheres of things. Any institution worthy of the name will no doubt agree that the core business of a university is about teaching, learning, and research. Added to these academic pillars are, of course, community engagement and internationalization. These all form part of what is commonly referred to as the academic enterprise of the university. It is evident, therefore, that there are other important elements of academic enterprise, like commercialization and innovation, as well as PQM, but most importantly, the Academic Development Center. And so we are asking the Deputy Vice-Chancellor to take a lead in this so that our institution can be known as one of the best institutions in fulfilling its academic mandate. The portfolios which need to make presentations. Colleagues, I have said before that whilst we are opening grounds as VUT, but you are not going to be listening to the Vice-Chancellor alone. Other portfolios will do exactly what I'm doing with you today. But in making their presentations, they will have to touch on the following: their vision and mission in support of the institutional vision and mission, their strategic objectives, their operations, and the impact their operations have on the university, as well as their challenges. And these portfolios, in this order, will have to make those presentations. And so we are still going to call on you, Mr. Chancellor, to come and preside when these colleagues make these presentations. Number one, Mr. David Ramasodi, our IT Executive Director, because we are a university of technology. It is important for our IT to tell us more about IT. What are the challenges? We are now talking fourth industrial revolution. Whether we, as an African university, are really ready for fourth industrial revolution or not, he will tell us that. And then, of course, that will be followed by e-skills, which is Ms. Antoinette Lombard, social justice and transformation, Mr. Mvalo, health and safety, Mapule, and then fleet management, Tabang. You know, on fleet management, colleagues, maybe in the next 2-3 days, we shall be making an announcement, and this is something that I've been saying to Tabang. There are cars at fleet management which are gathering dust. We said they must be sold on auction, and the employees must be given first preference. Now he has submitted a long list of such cars, which Mr. Masudubele will look at, and we advertise this, and our employees will have the first bite at those cars, because we can't have cars which are gathering dust there. So that is that. And then, of course, the student support services, Ms. Busi Khadebe, community engagement, Gerrit, that will be Ms. Annie Muletsane, CAD, Dr. Pauline Machika, corporate affairs, Mike Kuboni, international relations, Wiseman Jack, the office of the Vice-Chancellor, Mpodiaho Nkosinati Bula, Nondumi Solufele, the DVC academic, Professor Jimbo, research, Dr. Nelana, library, Ms. Bizi Wetembe. Ms. Bizi Wetembe, by the way, is my cousin. I think I want her to meet my wife after this. And then, of course, the executive deans will be ready. The finance, Mr. Masudubele, the registrar's portfolio, and I'm going to talk briefly about the registrar's portfolio. The Science Park. You know, there are colleagues who have not been to Science Park. If there is one person who's good at marketing the Science Park, is Dr. Mulete. So, colleagues, on the day on which he's making a presentation,
I invite you all to be here. He's very passionate about it. And then, of course, control systems management, Raj. You know, when we motivated for the creation of this position, some people did not know what we're talking about. But fortunately, when the auditors came in and said, VUT, you are spot on, I felt quite good about it. And then, of course, operations and logistics. You know, for as long as the Lord has given Professor Swanepoel the strength and the energy, we're going to sap the energy out of him. So he will be making that. And then, of course, quality assurance, Olga Evangelo and Trudy, Unit for Preparatory Programs, Prof. Connie Muloi, Education. Maybe further down the line, we may be talking about a faculty of education, you know, but that is going to take place. And then, of course, the sites of delivery, Mr. Vito Kungune will address us on behalf of the HR, the acting executive director, HR. Colleagues, there has been an issue which was raised on a number of occasions about the agency shop. This matter has been escalated to the forensic investigators because we felt that we cannot keep on saying, no, this is not happening, let it be subjected to forensic investigation, and the forensic investigation will deal with it once and for all. Revisiting the MOUs, MOAs, and partnership agreements. The current arrangement where each department is a custodian of its own MOU, MOA, or partnership is not good at all. Because what seems to be happening, colleagues, is that I'm keeping my own, David Ramaswamy is keeping his own, as it is not right. So this arrangement is not sustainable, and it leads to us playing a ping-pong game at best and a blame game at worst. Now I want to give the following directive: that departments may keep their MOAs or MOUs, but make sure that we send all copies to Mr. Bula, who will henceforth be the custodian of all of these. Then we know that if we want an MOA, Medudu, about our relationship with UNISA, we know exactly where to go. There's one central point, and Mr. Bula will be, that person, because at the moment, these are all over the show, and it's not sustainable. Two, Mr. Bula's office will be able to advise us well in advance when the agreements are due for extension or renewal. And I'm not talking about partnerships and service agreements, no employment contracts. The employment contracts, though, in the past, we have had to apologize to Council for having acted beyond our mandate as the EMC, for having extended and or renewed the contracts of post levels 4 without having gone through Council. And Council gave us a serious bashing on the matter. And we committed ourselves that such action will never happen again. Here is the point. Post levels 1 to 4, this is the competence of Council. Post levels 5 to 16, this is the competence of management. What should happen then? Whether it is post levels 1 to 4 or 5 to 16, HR needs to inform the line manager and remind the incumbent about the expiry of his or her contract at least 6 months in advance, so that the necessary negotiations, if any, for the renewal and or extension of the contract can then kick in. This is a fair process for both the university and the incumbent. And fortunately, right now we have approved guidelines about the renewal and extension of contracts of post levels 1 to 4. Every process which is going to lead to renewal has to be interrogated in terms of those guidelines, and then we make a submission to Council for its approval. Governance and administration and strategic leadership. This point is self-explanatory as it is axiomatic and does not need any more elucidation. However, for purposes of this address, it is important to mention the following. The registrar, as the equivalent of the corporate secretary in the private sector, is the head of governance. The registrar wears many hats and is sometimes referred to as the institution, as the engine, as the centerpiece which holds the spokes of a wheel together. This is a critical role as the governance processes can collapse an institution if not well followed and adhered to. It is only the registrar who can bring order to a meeting if it gets out of sync with the normal business procedures, practices, and processes. The registrar is the custodian of institutional policies pertaining to Council, Senate, Management, IF, Convocation, and the subcommittees. If the registrar fails, the institution suffers. The registrar is the chief administrative officer, whilst the vice-chancellor is the chief executive officer. The registrar advises management, Senate, and Council, especially the chairperson as well as the vice-chancellor. If the registrar and the vice-chancellor fail to work together as a team, then the institution will suffer from paralysis. Mr. Registrar, I hope you are listening. When does a university cease to exist? This point is important to make because it is touching the very fabric and existence of a university. An article written by Professor Jonathan Jansen in 2004, when he addressed the graduation ceremony at the University of Venda, sums it all. For he says, there are frequent strikes and protest actions, and the core business of a university suffers. The university is overcapacitated at the level of administrative and support staff in the discharging of its mandate. But the academic enterprise is under threat because it is understaffed. In other words, this explains when a university ceases to exist. Sabotage, undermining of institutional processes, and marginalization seem to be the order of the day. Institutional values are not embraced and lived. Many elephants are fighting and the grass suffers. The corporate hyenas are fast at work. There is a don't care attitude. Now listen to what Jonathan says when he was addressing the University of Venda. It would be easy to be fooled by the symbolic functions and routines of university life and mistake this for a university. Even at this rural site, there were annual graduation ceremonies led by lecturers dressed in full academic regalia, with solemn music accompanying the procession. Diplomas and degrees were handed out routinely. Each year, there would be a new intake of students, albeit with lower and lower entrance requirements, in order to keep the place solvent. The inflated matriculation results, which Umalusi recently conceded, was based on examinations that many key subjects had become easier, provided a temporary lifeline to this and other solutions. The financial squeeze had placed the ubiquitous moratorium on any new academic appointments. Lecturers would generally show up and teach. At the end of the year, there would be decisions about who passes and who fails, and then there is graduation again, close quotes. This sounds like business as usual, and the university is discharging its public mandate. But what is in the belly of the institution leaves much to be desired. Flouting and breaching of university rules and procedures seem to be the order of the day. This is when a university suffers. I will skip a few pages. How then can we pull ourselves out of this quagmire? There are many ways in which we can still rebuild what is left of VUT, but that can be achieved if we work together as one and forget our unproductive hidden agendas which seek to destroy this institution. Here below, I have borrowed from the King's College Strategic Plan, where they highlight there are 8 guiding principles. One, they say to be a successful university, the following need to happen. Being an exceptional institution in all what we do, focusing on excellence, and making a distinctive contribution to society. 2, building an inclusive environment where all individuals are valued and able to succeed. 3, building on the accomplishment of our predecessors and improve the university's performance for future generations by providing effective leadership. Using the best evidence and critical inquiry and learn from our successes and failures to prepare ourselves for the future. Enable meaningful connections between our students and staff to local, national, and international communities, thereby creating porous boundary between what we do and those communities. What is the way forward? As a servant leader for this institution, it is perhaps one better described by Martin Luther King Jr. when he explains what a servant leader is. And I quote, "A time like this demands strong minds, great hearts, true faith, and ready hands. Leaders who the lust of office does not kill. Leaders who possess opinions and a will. Leaders who can stand before a demagogue and damn his treacherous flatteries without winking. Tall leaders, sun-crowned, who live above the fog in public duty and private thinking," I close quote. I will and shall and should make sure that if I have to turn around this institution, the following shall have to happen. 1, to ensure effective and efficient corporate governance processes. Those who play the role of corporate hyenas will regrettably not have space to deal with their malicious acts. To ensure effective leadership, we shall have a lean and a mean management team. We shall ensure that decisions taken by council, management, and Senate are implemented without fail, and that there will be no more dawdling, prevarication, and procrastination. To institutionalize transformation. Transformation is now mandatory in terms of the Higher Education Act, and every manager will have to demonstrate the extent to which he or she contributes to institutional transformation. To commence discussions and negotiations with the unions on the future of the university if we are to save it from financial paralysis. To create an enabling environment for all. To tighten security and safety throughout the institution, but more specifically at our residences. We cannot now sit back and watch drug lords use our residences as their facilities. To ensure that male and female students do not have free access to the residences of the opposite gender without permission. I think I'm qualifying that, without permission. To root out corruption, to improve the financial position of the university. I have mentioned earlier that we shall have to start discussions with organized labor regarding the future of this university. And then, of course, I want to mention this one, colleagues, and whenever Mr. Matruko drives me around, he always complains about how old the Vice-Chancellor's car is. It has done well over 250,000 Ks. And he would always say to me, Prof, please advise council and management. And then my response to him was that, Jules, I don't think that it will be morally and ethically correct that in the midst of the financial squeeze the university finds itself, we're changing this car. Let's drive it until it parks along the road. Then we will phone and say, please come pick up the Vice-Chancellor. Then maybe it will make sense. So I've decided to forfeit that benefit and luxury. Something that we need to consider. Colleagues, something that we need to consider. We use Park Travel Agency. There is a lot that the university can do if we were to do the traveling arrangements ourselves, rather than going through a park travel. We are not closing their business, but I was quite impressed when Nonku, is Nonku here? Can you stand up, Nonku? Yeah, she arranged, thank you, Nonku, the transport, this and that, and, she did it very well. Of course, she had to liaise with Park Travel, but can we not make these arrangements ourselves? Because whenever you're using a service provider, there is a fee that you pay. So this is for instance, students have been talking about House of Rollins and the guys who are taking photos, what do you name? Mardos. But we have here professional photographers. Why can't we use them? And Mr. Registrar, when it comes to, okay, he's gone. When it comes to the gowns, we've got our department here. I think it falls under you, my sister. Why can't we use our own? And then if they have to hire gowns, they will be hiring gowns from the institution. So it is money circulating within the institution. Colleagues, I'm simply pointing out these things, that there is a lot that we can do to save for this institution, rather than spending all the time. And then, of course, we need to go on a very rigorous fundraising. For the first time, colleagues, we have a chancellor who is committed to helping this institution fundraise. All other chancellors, and I'm not trying to speak badly about them, they have never shown the kind of interest which Dr. Mkwanaz is showing. And he said he will help us. We are going to move on quickly, colleagues. And finally, and in addition to the point that I've mentioned above, we shall have to enhance VUT's international partnerships, but with a deliberate focus on Africa, because Africa is our home, and Africa is our motherland, and Africa is our continent, and Africa is where civilization started. Forgive those who refer to Africa as a dark continent. Our focus on Africa is affirmed by a speech made by the late Prof. Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe when he addressed the 1949 graduation ceremony at Fort Hare, and when he said, and I quote, "Let me plead with you, lovers of my Africa, to carry with you into the world the vision of a new Africa, an Africa reborn, an Africa rejuvenated, an Africa recrafted, young Africa. We are the first glimmers of a new dawn, I close quote. It is against this background that I would like to paraphrase his words for VUT as I say, let me plead with you, lovers of my VUT, to carry with you into the world the vision of a new VUT, a VUT reborn, a VUT rejuvenated, a VUT recrafted, young VUT, who are the first glimmers of a new dawn. That is what refers to a new VUT. I have earlier on indicated that we are going to have an institutional performance review. And I saw Hans Bretz, Hans is going to take us through that process because every department and every unit will have to show cause of its existence. Because this is something that I shared with my colleagues that even before the CHE comes on board and say, VUT, prepare yourselves, we need to have our own institutional performance review. And I'm happy to announce that Hans and the Vice Principal are already working on that process. Let me finish off, colleagues, because my throat is through. Now I will just finish. Let me finish by saying I am a proud African, and nobody will challenge me when I'm saying I'm a proud African. Now, therefore, think and imagine when the Most Reverend Michael Carey preached at the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan, over and above explaining the power of love, he challenged the congregation as I am challenging you now, to think and imagine a world where love is the way. Now I am putting this to you, borrowing from his words. I would like to convey the following as I conclude. Think and imagine a corruption-free VUT. Think and imagine a VUT where looting and eating will be practices of the past. Think and imagine a VUT having a sound financial base. Think and imagine a VUT having a clean audit. Think and imagine a VUT where institutional values are lived and practiced. Think and imagine a VUT which is not a cash cow. Think and imagine a VUT where collegiality is driven by love, brotherhood, sisterhood, and fellowship. Think and imagine a VUT full of love and honesty, and where there is no hatred and animosity, but where people are joined together by a common purpose of doing the very best they can for this university. Think and imagine a VUT where we can all join hands and embrace the philosophy of the late King Sobhuza II, as articulated by Prophet Landandwe, to quote, "Akusiko kwami kwebantu." It is not about me, it is about the people. Think and imagine a VUT where there is no rumor mongering, no clandestine or destructive meetings, but a VUT united in purpose and diversity. Think of these things. In conclusion, during the State of the University address, President Cyril Ramaphosa did a very rare thing by quoting the lyrics of a song sung by none other than the late Brahu Masekela, that jazz maestro who is internationally acclaimed when he stunned the nation by his now famous campaign of Tuma Mina, Send Me. This message has come to distinguish President Cyril Ramaphosa as one of the African intellectuals the continent has ever had. From this message, Cyril demonstrated his humility as a servant leader and asking the South African citizens to send him. For President Ramaphosa, it is not about himself, but more about the people of South Africa, and of course, indeed, embracing King Sobhuza II's philosophy. I therefore want to say, I want to be there when the people start to turn it around and when they triumph over poverty. I want to be there when they win the battle against AIDS. I want to lend a hand. I want to be there for the alcoholics. I want to be there for the victims of violence and abuse. I want to lend a hand. Send me to Mamina. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have another round of applause for the VC? There's no need for me to summarize or to provide a précis of what the VC has said, except to quote him, because this makes sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to you, that ethical behavior is related to self-esteem. Your self-esteem and my self-esteem. Your self-esteem as a student, your self-esteem as a staff member, and your self-esteem as a manager. We both believe that people who feel good about themselves have what it takes to withstand outside pressure and to do what is right rather than do what is merely expedient, popular, or lucrative. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice-Chancellor. Appreciate it. Now I call upon Ms. Ulandi Exner, who is Deputy Chair of Council, to give us her message of support. Ms. Exner, thank you.
I've always got to pull this thing down. All protocols observed. And bear with me when I say, Ngiyani Bingilele Nonke. Did I say it right? And I also want to acknowledge the choir and what an amazing choir it is. VC, is there a spot for me on the choir? I just wanted to jump up and dance and rejoice with them. Well done, congratulations. So I switch on the television and I watch the news or jump onto the various social media platforms, and there's a constant barrage of negative news. The price of fuel is high and it continues to rise. The crime rate in our country is unacceptable. Our gross domestic product fell by 2.2% in the first quarter of 2018, and this is according to Stats South Africa. The 2.2% fall is the largest quarter-on-quarter decline since the first quarter of 2009. Corruption, and the VC has already spoken about corruption, has received a record number of complaints since its inception in 2012, and the complaints that I'm referring to is for 2017. And racial intolerance continues to plague us. So nothing like a bit of doom and gloom to address you today and to convey my message of support. But as a South African, I am positive. I am very confident that we will face the various challenges thrown at us and we will rise to the occasion. There is an English proverb, necessity is the mother of invention, which means that a need or problem encourages creative efforts to meet the need to solve the problem. So I want to share with you, and please indulge me just for a couple of minutes while I share with you some of the inventions that South Africans can lay claim to. So the computed axial tomography scan, does anybody know what that is? It's the CAT scan. was developed by a Cape Townian physicist and an associate, and they provided a mathematical technique for the CAT scan in which an X-ray source and electronic detectors are rotated about the body, and the resulting data is analyzed by a computer to produce a sharp map of the tissues within a cross-section of the body. This resulted in a Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. The creepy crawly, do you all know what a creepy crawly is? Yes, we all know it's the vacuum cleaner for the pool. And this was developed by a chap from Springs. So he tried to figure out a way to take the hassle out of pool cleaning, and the result was the creepy crawly. And the first one was created in 1974. The cyber-tracker biologists everywhere rejoiced when physicist Louis Liebenberg and computer scientist Lindsay Steventon created the cyber-tracker in 1996. This was used to track animals of all shapes and sizes. It uses a satellite navigational system similar to a GPS that allows scientists in the comfort of their labs to keep tabs on tagged animals. We stand on the brink of a technology revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. We do not know yet how it will unfold, but one thing is clear. The response to it must be integrated and comprehensive, involving all stakeholders from the public and private sectors to academia and civil society. So the first industrial revolution used water and steam power to mechanize production. The second used electric power to create mass production. The third used electronics and information technology to automate production. Now, the fourth industrial revolution, which is what we're currently in, is with regards to the digital revolution and has begun occurring since the middle of the last century. It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. We need to shape a future that works for all of us by putting people first and empowering them. In its most pessimistic, dehumanized form, the fourth industrial revolution may indeed have the potential to robotize humanity and thus to deprive us of our heart and soul. But as a complement to the best parts of human nature, creativity, empathy, stewardship, it can also lift humanity into new collective and moral consciousness based on a shared sense of destiny. So I'm proud, VC, of VUT's new brand direction, which is inspired by the statement, "For a purpose." As Africa's university, what is our purpose? And this is clearly defined in our brand pillars: economic and social engine, resourceful ambition, community beacon, purposeful application. Our nation can be incredibly creative, and our role as the university is to provide the platform and opportunity for our youth to reshape our economic, social, and cultural and human environments. So in my closing, I leave you with this statement: let's make history and build a legacy our children can be proud of. Vice-Chancellor, you have the undivided support of Council, and we look forward to this journey with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Another round of applause for the Deputy Chair. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your support and your kind words. I'm sure Ms. Mokotsi is extremely happy that she is vindicated together with her team. Thank you. I now call upon our Chancellor to do the closure. Chancellor.
Thanks again, Professor. Oh, what an inspiring state of the nation of this university address. Frank, honest, refreshing in vision, Professor Zide. Many, many thanks. I'm very proud to be a member of this institution where you publicly espouse your leadership style, your servant leadership values, your intentions of cleaning up, your intentions of turning what you told us to think and imagine into reality. I definitely want to be there when that happens. In other words, I want that to happen within my tenure as Chancellor of this university. And I'm sure many other members of this institution would like the same. Before I close, I would like to just thank all of you for coming, especially our VIPs from the council around, members of other council, deputy chair of council, the registrar, the unions, and all of us, not to forget the beautiful choir of this university. I'm looking forward to that CD, and you, Professor Zibo. And finally, by virtue of the powers vested in me as Chancellor, I now dissolve this congregation of the Valley University of Technology.
All rise and stand, please. Thank you. Please remain standing while the colleagues leave the podium. Thank you.
Can we allow the stage party to leave, followed by our VIP, please?